Hi, and welcome to Conductor, where we are two sisters on a mission to amplify women's voices on the podium.
Join us as we interview leaders in the field of choral music, share resources, and build a community for current and future teacher conductors, all while exploring the gender divide. I'm Kyra Starr.
And I'm McKenna Stenson, and we are Conductor. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Conductor today. We are really excited to have a special guest with us. Kyra, you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Today we have Morna Edmundson on the podcast.
And we are just going to read a little bit about the bio of this incredible conductor teacher who we're going to interview today. Morna Edmundson is one of Canada's best-known choral directors with a strong reputation for excellence. Based in Vancouver, she is artistic director of Elektra and Encore Choir, an auditioned SATB ensemble for mature voices. Passionate since childhood about singing, Morna obtained degrees and diplomas in vocal music in Vancouver, Bellingham, and Stockholm, Sweden.
Morna has adjudicated in North America and Asia, conducted state and provincial honor choirs, and community choral festivals. She gives frequent workshops with youth and adult choirs and advocates for and encourages the next generation of choral professionals. Her accomplishments have been recognized with many awards, including a Vancouver YWCA Woman Distinction Award and a Doctor of Letters honoris causa from the University of British Columbia. And it has recently been announced that Morna has received the Order of Canada, which is very exciting, and we are so thrilled to announce that here on the podcast.
Thank you.
So we're going to dive right in. And Morna, we would love it if you could tell us a bit about your upbringing and how you came to choral music.
Yeah. Well, unlike you two, I'm not from a specifically musical family, but I did grow up loving any music classes that I was in and just finding it easy and engaging and so much fun. And then in high school, I became a flute player, studied hard, practiced all the time, went into university as a flute player, but kept getting sort of drawn into choir. And I was in my high school choir, but I was at a very, very small high school. So we only had 14 people, only 360 people from 8th to 12th grades in this school, and a very small choir run by a teacher sort of after hours and a parent volunteer kind of thing. So there was no music program in my high school, but I just engaged in everything that I could, Yeah. And then I went on into university and changed my mind a few times at that age, which I think a person should do at 18, 19, 20 is this the right path? And I'm just going to take a little tangent for a second and say that I said to my daughters at that age, pay attention to the electives that you're in, that you want to come home and tell me about, because there may be some path for you that isn't the one you thought. So I started in music, then changed my mind and went into general arts, and then went back right away the next year into music, thinking if I don't try this, I'll wonder for the rest of my life what it was. And then I just was deep into it, as you guys know all about too.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey everyone, come check out the newest collaborations with Conductor and Call Time Clothing. Shop the newest designs from your favorite female conductor-owned clothing line, inspired by choir music education, made to order just for you. Get one of your own for $35 Canadian, or about $26 American, plus a flat rate shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today. Do you live near other conductors and want to save on shipping? Order multiple tees in one order so that you only pay one shipping fee. Visit calltimeclothing.com today or follow us on Instagram.
And we're back. That's beautiful. I connect with you, Morna, because I was a flute player as well and had a deep passion for band. I was going to be a band director. And, choir, like you said, it just kept drawing me in. So it's pretty amazing, the power of vocal music and connections to text and the community. So absolutely.
I also think that's really reassuring for our young listeners to hear that it's
Yeah.
okay to change your mind. And I think a lot of people come into a career in music thinking, oh, I loved my choral experience or my band experience in high school.
Yeah.
And then they get to the skills classes and the theory, and suddenly your whole life is music. And that can feel so overwhelming and sometimes take the joy away for a moment. And
Yeah.
it's good to reassure people that there's joy on the other side, and those skills are important. And also,
Yes.
we need audience members, we need people in our community choirs, and even if this isn't what you want for your career, we should still encourage those students to keep music in their lives. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
mm,
there's so many ways we could talk about that, but yeah, tangents. Yeah, yeah,
incredible. So
yeah,
you spoke a little bit about your background as just a young flautist, and then
yeah,
coming into college and discovering choral music was actually where you
yeah,
belonged. Can you think
yeah.
of if there was maybe a specific event or maybe series of events that was
Yeah.
inspirational for you to choose choral music?
Sure, sure. I think university was where I found the kind of excellence of choirs where I figured out that listening, the choir in which everybody is really listening is as important as a choir where everybody is singing. They've both got to be there. Both of those pieces have to be there. And so I had some really great experiences as a singer in university choirs, and wasn't thinking I would be a conductor. I took the one conducting class that was offered as an undergrad. And then I right away started singing in the Vancouver Chamber Choir at age 23, which is a professional choir. And I was just the right person at the right time, I was a good sight reader, of course, because of all the flute playing. And so I was in that choir for 9 years. So basically throughout my 20s into my 30s. And that's where, tons of repertoire was just constantly flowing by me. I was also in an Anglican church choir, which means you read it on Thursday, you sing it on Sunday, you hand it in, and you get on to the next one. And at a very young age, of course, I wasn't really paying attention to who the composers were. I was just sight reading as fast as I could. And now I really wish that I could be a fly on the wall of my own experiences as a young person and take in even more. But it was during those years in the Vancouver Chamber Choir that I was that singer who was kind of sitting forward in her seat and thinking, I wonder why we're going back to letter B. Why would I be going back to letter B? You just start to realize that you're analyzing in a different way and not just waiting to be instructed. And I often say, if I've got a whole room of high school kids in front of me, I say, some of you don't realize it, but you're going to be choral conductors because that's where we come from. And I think that there's this idea when we're maybe younger that conductors are somehow ordained from on high and special people, and no, we're not. We're either pianists, organists, choral singers who just want to go deeper, and after a while want to start being the one that makes the decisions. But it's not because we really want to be in the spotlight necessarily or think that we're better than everybody else. We just want to make the decisions musically, and so we start gathering those other skills that are needed to be able to do that. During those years with the Vancouver Chamber Choir and John Washburn was really when I started thinking about that. And then I heard the Stockholm Chamber Choir. This was the moment. I think I was 25, and they came to sing with the Vancouver Chamber Choir, joint concert. We both did our own repertoire and we did some things together. And I didn't know what was going on in the rest of the world in terms of choral music, but that choir was just jaw-dropping to me. Such vibrant, beautiful, natural, nuanced tone, so beautifully in tune. And now I know that the Swedish language and the Swedish vocal history and all that really contributed to that incredible choral scene in Scandinavia. And so as soon as I heard that, I thought, where have you been all my life? Like, this is it. This is what I love. This is the sound I love. So then I went and lived in Stockholm for a year when I was 27. So again, I always encourage people who say, oh, I'm thinking of going. I go, do it now. Do it before you have kids, before you have a job you can't leave. Just go and take that adventure. So that was my huge adventure, was to just follow wanting to know how they made that music. And that meant deciding whether I was going to go to Stockholm just to be a singer or study conducting. And I wanted to go in the framework of conducting classes and all that. So I went to the Royal Conservatory of Music in conducting, and everything in my life changed. It just solidified. It became clear to me that that's what my brain was wired to do and what I loved. But going into that experience, I wasn't a conductor at all. But then I came out the other end of it, and a year later, we were starting Elektra, and everything about my life sort of started to take shape. Yeah,
Oh, that's so incredible. I
it
I
was
was
great.
connecting to what you were saying about having that global experience because McKenna and I were lucky enough to go to the World Choral Symposium a couple
Oh
years
yeah,
ago. And just
in Turkey, where were
in
you?
Turkey, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And just being around these other musicians who are like-minded musically, but
Yeah.
could not be more different in terms of our life experiences and even our
Yes.
backgrounds and our choral backgrounds. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
refreshing and invigorating. And to get to experience that, I will forever feel lucky for that experience. And
Yeah.
I came back to the States and was like, okay, yeah, we're doing
Yeah.
something special here. And
Yeah.
our work matters, and it's so great to see that in a global perspective.
Mm.
Yeah.
For me, that happened in 1993. Is that right? Yeah, we hosted the third, and I don't know what it is now, like the 15th or something, the third World Symposium on Choral Music in Vancouver. And that, again, it just changed so much for me because the choirs sound so different from one to the other. People's conducting technique is so different, and all you think about is you listen to the choir, you watch what the conductor's doing, and you just say to yourself, is that working? Not is that how I would do it, or is that what the textbooks told us to do, or whatever. Is it connecting and producing vibrant, meaningful, memorable music? I'm totally with you. Everybody should go to the World
Mm.
Symposium on Choral Music. I've probably been to about 5 of them, performed at 2 of them actually. It's life-changing if you perform there. And B, it's life-changing just to be there and meet your colleagues and all that. Did you hear the Vancouver Youth Choir?
Yeah, we did. We are fangirls of Carrie Tennant.
Oh, you must. I hope you have had Carrie on your show, or you're about to, because she is amazing. Yeah, totally amazing.
I think we just have like a podcast episode in the first 10 minutes. I'm frantically writing down some of the really powerful things that you're saying. And one of them that just really caught my ear, especially in my capacity here, is working with our undergrads who are about to go out and student teach and like begin their teaching careers as one of my courses. And you said I was analyzing in a different way and not just waiting to be instructed. And
Right.
so often I think in rehearsal, I'm trying to remind the singers that don't wait for permission. Go forth, like the information you need is here in the score, and then we can unlock it together. But don't wait to be asked to make
Right.
decisions. And that initiative that you spoke to, and then you having that awareness to celebrate that in others, which is something that we know is a strength of you and of Elektra Choir. So just really, really beautiful to hear you speak to so many things that we're passionate about and excited to discuss. Our last intro question, you mentioned John Washburn with the Vancouver
Yeah.
Chamber Choir in your time abroad in Stockholm, but was there anyone else who has been helpful or influential in your journey that you might want to mention here on the podcast today?
I mentioned that Anglican Church Choir, and the conductor is no longer alive. His name was Patrick Wedd. And there I was. I started singing there when I was still in high school. But what he taught me was that what you have in front of you on the page is it's just how it needs to be shared. It's not the music. He could get amateur singers to just start a rehearsal, see the page, make music, and it's immediately off the page. And I think that it's so healthy for us to remember that this page is just a tool. It's not the destination at all. And if we can go beyond that, that's great. And other than that, and certainly no women until I was older. Yeah, I would just say the conductors that I was singing with, Eric Erickson for sure in Sweden.
Oh, well, we appreciate them being in your life because it created you and your musical journey. So we are so grateful that you're here and are excited to just learn more about you and share with our listeners. So diving in a little bit to Elektra Choir, which was formed in 1987. You are a co-founder with Diane Loomer, correct?
Correct.
Beautiful. So we were wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the organization began and why the two of you felt inspired to start Elektra.
Yeah, great. So it was 1987. Diane was doing a conducting mentorship with John Washburn. She was a little bit older, and I was singing with John Washburn. So we knew each other, and we had actually been in some classes at UBC together. And we were just at a party after a concert one time, and one of us said to the other, I was thinking of starting a women's choir. And so the other one said, so was I. And we decided to do it together. And people said, oh, that doesn't work, to have two conductors, or, what are you going to sing? Because that was an actual factor. They thought we'd run out of repertoire after a couple of concerts. We co-conducted for 22 years. And I think we were sort of the yin and yang of each other in the way we rehearsed a little bit, but we were after the same sound. Her background was Swedish. I had just come home from Sweden. So there was a kind of commonality of what we were working towards. I think if we had not been working toward the same musical result, it would have been tricky. And then it was just so amazing for both of our careers that keeping it working was just such a no-brainer. It was just so obvious. And then finally in 2009, she was probably late 60s or something, 70. And she said, I know we've been talking about this and sort of ignoring it for years, but this is real. I really do have to leave. She left at the end of the 2009 season, and we really celebrated her then. And then sadly, she passed away at age 72 a few years later. She was still conducting, but she had a lot of health challenges.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Hagan, composer and founder of Compose Like a Girl, a choral series dedicated to empowering composers who identify as women through mentorship, publication, and promotion. With over 30 pieces in the series, with many different voicings, we're showcasing fresh, compelling music like Womankind by Emily Drum, The Infinity of Space by Ritika Bhattacharjee, and When I Become an Old Woman by Sherry Blevins. Explore the catalog at jocelynhagan.com/composelikeagirl and graphitepublishing.com.
And we're back.
She was a mentor. I mean, we were peers, but we were also learning from each other all the time. So I shouldn't say I had no female mentors, but our journeys, even though she was older, were kind of going along in parallel. We were both learning all the time. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I love hearing about the female friendship and how the two of you were able to say like, oh, we both have this idea and that's actually a good thing. We can help each other and lift each other up, which I think is not always the first reaction. So the fact that you two had that, I believe is quite special, and I think has probably contributed to the manifestation of this group becoming such a success. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And we had this way of programming that we decided that we would each have 50% of the program all the time. And we would alternate who got to do a commissioned work. If I did it last time, you do the next one. And we even had it that if I opened the concert, she would close the concert or vice versa. And we brought music, and we would literally crawl around on the living room floor and kind of, say, how about this before that? And, it was very physical. And then sometimes, and then we'd say, okay, well then, but I brought this, so I really want to conduct it. And she'd say, I brought this, so I really want to conduct that. And then we'd start figuring out whether we had the right number of minutes of music. And then sometimes there'd be a piece that was just kind of still sitting on the floor. And it was a great litmus test, because if neither of us really cared about conducting it, why is it in the program? So things would just go away. So it was actually a very good process. And our programs, I think, were quite eclectic, and the whole repertoire development thing is something we should talk about too, because that's huge for Elektra.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I mean, I've been listening to the Elektra CDs and now on Spotify and YouTube for as long as I can remember. That's where I always go to look for eclectic, exciting, diverse repertoire for treble choir that doesn't get put in necessarily one category of music because it's so broad. I know that Elektra has a choral series with Cypress, which is also one of my favorite websites to go find.
Yeah, there's so much music there.
Can you talk a little bit? This is more broad based, but feel free to direct it toward programming. What have some of the greatest joys and challenges with the group been over time? Because now it's been since the 1980s to 2024, almost 25.
This is our 38th season, and I'm sure you know it's my last season too. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it is so bittersweet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so at the beginning, you guys are too young to know about this, but you used to go to the retail store and you'd go through the bins, the little bin for treble repertoire, and it would be all the arrangers' faces on the covers of the music, like Kirby Shaw and whatever, because there was a lot of pop stuff. And then you go, oh, cool, Duraflame, flip, 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 flip. And so we had this deal that if somebody's face was on the cover of the music, we didn't even look at it. It was a non-factor. So there we were, realizing that there was, a little bit of Fauré, Duraflame, tiny bit of Mendelssohn, some Brahms. We don't have Mozart. We don't have Bach. We don't have Beethoven. They're just giant holes in the repertoire for us. But then we discovered the Scandinavian children's choirs, specifically Tapiola, and they had actually really started the whole thing, in my awareness anyway, of working with contemporary composers. And so that was suddenly repertoire we were hungry for. So on some of our earlier CDs are some finished things because of that. And then other Canadian children's choirs had commissioned music as well. But we wanted to, as we started sort of building our awareness for what was missing, we wanted to commission things that adult voices could sing. And I'll tell you about another sort of really pivotal moment in our story. So 10 years into Elektra's story, we hadn't been anywhere other than about a 50-mile radius from home. We had a couple of CDs, but we'd never traveled anywhere. And then we were invited to the World Symposium in 1996 in Sydney, Australia. And that's where people were starting to hear Canadian music that we brought, and were really excited about that music. But our program was still maybe a third Canadian or something like that. We went to San Diego to the ACDA National. I think maybe I'd been to one national in my life before that, in the spring of 97, or the winter of 97. And that was absolutely a defining moment for Elektra, because people were coming up to us and saying, and we had a booth there, when we were selling our 2 CDs, and people, now we have 17. We sold $14,000 worth of CDs in 4 days at our booth, and we had no idea people knew who we were. And people were coming up to us and saying, when I went into my college women's choir in September, I held up this CD and I said, girls, this is what we're going to aspire to. And we were just gobsmacked. I mean, we had no idea that people in Missouri would know who we were. Think about it. It was pre-websites. It was pre-social media. It was, right? Or at least we didn't have a website, I don't think. And so the fact that that word had kind of just organically gotten out about us, and that we were helping women, and not just women conductors, but conductors of young women, feel validated and be inspired because the music was more interesting. And I think that was the pivotal moment at which we thought a big part of our job is creating more repertoire, so that people who are singing in a college women's choir or treble choir, or whatever it's going to be called now, they walk into that rehearsal room excited because it's not a second-class citizen, right? And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure this is the story of your entire podcast, but sometimes I've said to people, and it's very simplistic, and you'll get it and your listeners will get it, but most people just look at me blankly. Part of my life's work has been making sure that when girls look at the list of who's been selected for which choirs in their high school or their college, they don't go into the bathroom and cry, because their name's on the women's choir list or the treble choir list instead of the SATB list, right? You know, it shouldn't be. The conductors should be excited, really excited with that group. And we all know people who are. Um, and the repertoire should be exciting so that the experience is really, really strong. And the world has really changed. And I'll take our little teeny piece of credit, and there are, you know, thousands of people that are a piece of that change in the landscape. But that became central to what we were doing. Was it's not only so that our choir can sing something more interesting, it's so that everybody can feel more proud of what they're singing, and that people who walk into a women's choir concert, whether it's in a college or a community setting, who are dragged there by somebody else and don't really expect to like it and kind of think it's all going to sound the same, come out of there really moved and impressed and engaged, and they want to come back. And I do think of those people that didn't intend to come to the concert when I'm programming, as well as the people who are going to look at our website and see, well, what's Elektra doing now? What are the new commissions? Who are they commissioning? You know, and all that's there to see on the website, to sort of leave a mark for what I think is important through this whole decades of trying to make things stronger.
Oh, wow. Okay, I connected to, I mean, McKenna and I were nodding just vigorously on the screens. I connected so much to what you just said, from talking about picking out music at the store. We would go with our mom when she was programming when we were little kids, and we would sit there while she fanned through the boxes of music at Fox's Music Store. Shout out to Fox's, they're still there. And I recall exactly what you said when you just said the treble box was very small. And to be honest with you, it still is some places. Yeah. And both McKenna and I direct treble choirs right now. And everything that you just said about day one, when I had the privilege of being with this choir this year, I was thrilled. And I was like, great, we're going to make great music together. Yeah. And day one, you can tell some of the students are like, oh, I just really wish I was in X, Y, or other ensemble. And we have a duty to program not only for those students, but for the audience, like you just said. Yes. So we empower those students, and by picking repertoire that they can connect with and feel, you know, a connection with, whether it be one that's sad or empowering or strong. And we owe it to them to say, you have a voice and your voice matters, and look at all the ways you can use it. And then the audience gets to walk away and be like, they were incredible. And then it's cyclical, the confidence and the love, it just continues back and forth, where they say, oh my gosh, my friends loved our set. And then I'm like, that's because you're amazing. And they say, yeah, we are amazing.
Yeah, it really has. You know, sometimes I think, has it changed that much? You know, we're talking about my life's work here, right? And I think, have I made a difference? I know I have. Yes. But I agree that it's still, we're still not the ones that get the prime spot in the concert or whatever it is, you know. So there's that. The world hasn't changed that much. At the same time, I would say years ago, when a friend would send me their program from their women's or treble choir program, I would know half the music. Now people could send me, you guys could send me your programs. I might not know a single piece of music on there. And that's actually exciting, right? Because there's now hundreds of times more repertoire than there was when we started, and by fantastic people that I've never met and never heard of. And you know, I'm not at the beginning of my career. There are some things that I'm never going to conduct, and composers I'm never going to meet. But the landscape has changed significantly, and I'm really proud of that.
And I think the attitude that you talked about, going in and acknowledging there is a void here. And so part of the mission of Elektra Choir is going to be to fill that void. And what a great role model to see in the field of saying, okay, I see the problem. I'm going to address the problem, and I'm going to celebrate this process. And I remember the first time getting to premiere a work, I got to premiere Tundra, Olielo piece with Lynn Gackle was directing. And just that experience of her navigating us through a brand new work. That changed my perspective to know what it's like to experience something for the first time and let the audience be a part of that. And it's made me more excited to go out and feel more capable of embarking in that type of project.
Yeah, I absolutely love unpacking a new piece. That's a lot we could talk about too, because it's, I'm not a big shopper. I'm not a big retail therapy kind of person. I would rather get a new piece of music from somebody than a lot of other things that people find enjoyable. And figuring out how to rehearse it with the choir. I sat in on one of those rehearsals with Lynn. However many years ago that was. Where was it? It was at an ACDA.
Yes,
National.
I think that was Oklahoma. It was Oklahoma or Chicago. I think it was Oklahoma.
Oh, could have been. Okay, yeah. Anyway, I remember hearing it, and then we did that piece subsequently. So yeah. But that process is so fresh and so relevant and fun to approach as a conductor intellectually. How am I going to unpack this piece? How am I going to find out myself where it's going and what it sounds like and all of that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, before we leave just this category of things, I just want to plug the Elektra website, which features a lot of repertoire resources. McKenna and I are always looking up Elektra videos on YouTube. I just programmed something from the Tapiola Choir. So if you go to their website, there's amazing repertoire there for our teachers who are listening. And you can filter things. So check out the Elektra website.
Yeah. And I'll just say one more thing about that. So it's elektra.ca, which is ELEKTRA, and .ca is a Canadian thing. And you look under repertoire, and then not only can you search by composer or by title, or there's some sections like sacred other than Christmas or whatever. But it also says our performances. And if you want to see A, sort of what we're doing recently, and B, what order I structured the program in to sort of create some kind of an arc or a shape or an experience for people. That's something that's such an inexact science. And every year I think, how do I know how to do this? Can I do it again? It's hard. It never ceases to be challenging. But when you get it right, you feel that it's right. And so there's just a lot of examples if somebody wants to see how I think, probably just there in those repertoire lists in performance order. So yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, we love that. We have a whole presentation on programming, and we know that it is a fun puzzle to solve.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, well, we appreciate all that you just said about treble choirs and the empowerment of young women and older women and allowing opportunities throughout everyone's life to sing and feel good about what they're singing. And related to that, we were wondering if you could share a bit about your personal experiences with mentorship. You mentioned kind of you and Diane mentoring each other as you went on this journey. And think about maybe some ways that we can continue to be better mentors in the field of choral music.
Right. So about me and Diane, we never offered each other advice if we didn't ask for it. So that was our way of allowing ourselves to learn as we were doing it. So I would never go up to her and say, don't you think that's a little slow, or whatever. And nor would she do the same with me. But we were seeing each other work. And if we wanted advice on something, we would get it. And so we had a very, very good relationship for all those years. I heard a really good definition. Marion Dolan actually said, instruction is when you've got a bunch of information and you're sharing it. Mentorship is where your interest is in the other person's experience. So it's not just a brain dump from me of here's everything because I'm so wise and old and whatever. Mentorship is where you look at where that mentee's life is or where their career is, and you say, is there anything in me that I can bring to that person? And they have to want to receive it. But I think I've always been very open with people who contact me. People have asked me about the relationship with Diana, like, could we co-conduct? And I've always said, and people have as a result of us doing it, I've always said it has to be based on mutual respect. There has to, at the core, not be somebody who thinks they should be actually making all the decisions. So there has to be that mutual respect. And then beyond that, as I said, I think at the beginning, we had different strengths, but we both valued the other person's strengths, and that was clear from the beginning. So that was just the model that we used, and it worked for 22 years. So, and in terms of mentoring other people, I try to be there for them on a practical level about their career as well. If they, and Carrie Tennant would be an example of that. She considers me a mentor, which I consider a great honor because she's amazing. But in those cases, it was more about how to get paid and how to make your life, because I don't teach in the school system and I don't teach in the university system. So I just have community choirs. I've also had arts admin jobs in my life, which, at one point in my life, I had 5 choirs and no other job. I've had a full-time festival administration job and 2 choirs at a time, always working way too hard. Work-life balance is not something I could ever mentor somebody about, except to say, don't do what I do. But I like to think that I've been able to help some people sort out how to value their time, how to spend their time, how to be clear with a board sorry, this is another long conversation, but sometimes we approach choirs, at least in Canada, thinking, well, they can't afford this, or they can't afford me, or I can't ask for what I want. And then sometimes it's just an education thing. They wouldn't want their own children working for what they're about to ask us to do. And if you put it that way, and I'll just give you the super short version of this, is you have to decide how many hours of prime time you have every week, because you have to sleep and you have to eat and you have to commute and you have to have a life. So what are those working hours that you have? What's the amount of money that you in your own mind know that you have to earn? And for all of us, it's different, and in different places that we live, the cost of living is different, all that. But somewhere in your mind, you know what that number is. You know what those prime time hours are that you have available to sell or volunteer, give away, whatever you want. But to get to that number that you need to earn, the math is actually really easy, right? You take the amount you need to earn, you divide it by the number of hours. And if you want to do something for less than what that turns out to be, it better be a conscious decision. And you can do something completely free. You can say, I'm going to spend, 3 hours a week doing this thing and never get paid. And that is totally cool because I've calculated that in. And for the other ones, it makes it really easy to say to a choir that, publicize that they're advertising for a new conductor, but they didn't say what they earn. And then you get into the interview and suddenly what they're paying or what they're proposing to pay is nowhere near, if you extrapolate it and you said, well, if I did 5 of those, would I come up to my number? Would I be able to make a living? And are they expecting a fifth of my prime time and my energy? Right. And so all of it becomes really logical. And then you can just say in the interview, what a wonderful choir you have. I would love to be able to do this, but I'm sorry, I can't afford to. And even if you walk away from that interview and you never, whatever, they can think whatever they want. But I think that somewhere in those board members' minds is going to be a little kernel of, oh, we're not offering what somebody needs to earn a living. And only by having not 12 choirs that each want a fifth of our time, think about how implosive that's going to be realistic about how much time is this going to take of my life and how much mental energy, what bandwidth do I have to really put that organization where it wants to be and where they're getting the time and energy from me that they expect that they're buying. And this is where the math becomes really simple, and where that conversation that you have with them as you walk away, or hope that they might offer you more, but often walk away, it doesn't have to be emotionally charged, and you don't have to feel guilty. It's just, I'm sorry, but I can't afford to take this job.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
conductor, 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 conductor.
Hey, Kyra.
Hey, McKenna.
You know what choral directors are always looking for?
What?
Well, as choral directors, we are always looking for new pieces to program for our upcoming concerts, and Pavon Publishing is proud to have some outstanding women composers and conductors in its catalog.
Wow, what are some of the new releases?
Well, let me tell you. Canto e Liberta by Diana Saez and Suzette Ortiz for treble voices, piano, and percussion. It was premiered under the direction of Dr. Iris Levine from Conductor Season 1 and is in her Pavon Treble Choral series.
Ukrainian composer Irina Alexichuk's Holy Lord of Hosts is stunning and was premiered in the U.S. by Grant Gershon and the LA Master Chorale. Grant has launched his new series with Pavon in support of this remarkable composer.
Zenaida Robles, one of the most sought-after female writers, will have her latest composition, The Summit is Nigh, premiered at the ACDA National Convention in Dallas this March. Again, a Conductor Season 2 interviewee.
Janaea Robison, conductor of the Lutheran National Choir, has two new offerings: an SATB voicing of her successful setting of I Wonder as I Wander, and new editions of Bach's cantata BWV 118, with alternative lyrics that enables performances from Advent and Christmas to Palm Sunday and Easter. Check out Pavon Publishing today at pavonpublishing.com.
And we're back.
And hopefully they'll turn around and offer it out there, and maybe the next person will benefit from your being able to articulate that without guilt or accusation, or don't you know what I'm worth, or don't you know who I am. It's not that. It's a gap in their understanding of how a person makes a living as a conductor and their expectations of what they're going to have to pay. And yeah, so in that way, I'm very useful, I think, as a mentor for some people, because everybody's going, well, they can't afford that. And I'm going, then you don't have to work for them. You know, you can literally just say, I'm sorry, this doesn't work for me. And somebody else who can afford to work for them might take the job, but somewhere in there, they need to understand that our time is worth something, you know. And then the beautiful freedom of not having 7 choirs when you really should only have 3, or whatever it is, you know, it kicks in, and then everybody benefits. The people who have bought your prime time are getting more of your time and attention and energy. Hopefully that helps somebody. Yeah.
I think that's a huge help. We've had one episode before this, and we focused on entrepreneurship. And I think that this really celebrates what Jen Rosenblatt, she's the one of the co-founders of Music Spoke Publishing.
Oh, yeah.
And she just really chatted about what you were saying, and knowing your worth, and setting goals, understanding that, yes, there might be times where you choose to do something for free, but it's a choice. You're doing that as a deposit that later might become a withdrawal in another circumstance. And so I think there's a lot of pre-programmed narratives sometimes growing up that in whether that's from a woman's perspective or from the perspective of artistic perspective, you know, we're in the arts and therefore we volunteer our time. But as you said, there are important factors like eating and sleeping
and sustaining relationships, right?
And pouring into the prime time, because if you are not able to give your best, if you're not able to give what you know is possible because you're too saturated, then everyone is suffering from a disservice, but especially yourself.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's not the 7th choir you took that suffers. It's every choir that you've got. And it's really hard for anybody else to interpret that. All of a sudden, she's not answering our emails, or she's unreliable, or she seems tired all the time, or whatever. And she or he, you know, this could be anybody.
Right.
It's not at all obvious why, and yet we've put ourselves in that position. Well, we need to be able to take a breath and step back and say, this is in my control, and what do I need to do to change it if it's not right? Now, one beauty of not working for a school or a university, college, is that I probably have a little more agency over how I spend my days. You know, once you get into a job, they're demanding a lot of things. And you can't very well say, well, I've just realized, you know, I took this job and I'm 3 years in and I hope it's tenure track or whatever, but I've just realized I need to change it. You maybe don't have quite that same agency. But hopefully you have some. Yeah.
Well, you've talked about so many things related to timing and sort of work-life balance. So we're going to segue into a different direction.
Sure.
You mentioned at the start of our time together that you have daughters.
Yeah.
And we love asking our guests about timing and balance related to family and career.
Okay.
So if you'd be willing to speak to any of that, I have a 6-month-old at home,
wow.
and I know I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And so many of our audience is working on being the best they can be for both of these things. So
A very wise friend said to me one time, I love working and I love being a mother, but I hate the transitions. And because at the transition moment, when you're leaving the house or when you're coming home and you're tired and whatever, and you still have work to do in the evening and all of that, you feel like you're not doing a good job for anybody. And that was often the feeling for me. And she expressed it so simply in that phrase. I didn't do a great job of that. I worked way too much. And I don't know what to say. If I had it all to do over again, I would take more time. Because I didn't work for a school district or anything, I didn't have maternity leave the same way. I mean, generally in Canada now we have fantastic maternity leave. You can take 18 months and the father can take time and the other spouse and, all of that good stuff. I was under this misguided idea that if I didn't show up and get paid, I wouldn't keep those jobs. And so I went back way too quickly and was so stressed. And it's the one regret of my life that I didn't find a way to carve out more time when my kids were really little. So if there's anybody listening right now, the world is not going to stop turning if you try to find a little more time, and the jobs will still be there and your skills will still be there and the choirs will still be there, and you just have to be clear, and anybody who has children, I think, is going to realize that those young years are so fleeting. Yeah, I mean, my kids, one of them just turned 29 the other day and the other's 31, so it's been a long time. But I remember those early days, you put one foot in front of the other and you get through every day and you wonder later how on earth you did that. You need a supportive spouse, which I had, but it's real trench work trying to balance both, and very difficult. And I think everybody finds their own balance. But it's hard. Yeah.
I see McKenna just nodding and tearing up lightly in the background here. I mean, it can't be said enough times. We just wrote a journal article for the Choral Journal about, there's not enough women in our field, and it just continues to be the case. And why is this happening, and what can we do to make things better? And we think one of the primary reasons is lack of support for not only maternity and paternity leave, but then afterwards, lightening the load of the administrative duties of the after hours work of these people who need to go home and take care of an infant
or a teenager.
And this is true for people who want to adopt as well. I mean, anyone, like at any age when you become a caretaker or for an elderly parent, there are all these situations that as co-workers, we need to do a better job of lightening the load for our friends who do have children in the field, whether or not they are women. My mentor right now has a 2-year-old at home, and they're having a baby. Like, it's just it. And I ask, like, okay, I know when you go home, like you can't do anything because you're inundated, but it's a different way that you are living, and it continues to be hard. I mean, really, until that kid is grown up, until they're 29.
Right, exactly. Yes, it doesn't stop for a long time. So I have a question and a comment. So the question is, what's your data about not enough women in the field? Because I would hope that had changed a lot. Or are you talking about in senior positions? So where are you coming up with that?
So we interviewed Sierra Farquhar-Wolf, who did her master's research on specifically women in academia, but also women in professional choral ensembles. And a lot of this data is specific to the United States. You might be wondering, yes, Canada is a better place in terms of all of this. But there's actually been a decline by 7% in the number of women who are in academic positions from 2000 to 2020. So it's actually gotten worse in the last 20 years. And
Wow.
McKenna and I, one of the reasons we started this podcast is because being in such a privileged position of having each other as, partners in this journey, have a lot of conversations about how to make things work. And through our own individual experiences in our education and our teaching experiences, have all these mentors that we don't share, but now we know them. And so we've created kind of a web of people who can help and talk about how they made it work. And so it's one of the reasons we wanted to start the podcast, but we're happy to share with you all of our data.
Awesome. Awesome. No, that's okay. I just wondered where that came from. And interestingly, it all was measured before the pandemic. So then the point I was just going to make coming out of that was that I think I like to believe, I'm such a Pollyanna, that the pandemic might have opened up more possibilities for people to work from home and do things a bit differently and spend their time in different ways. And that doesn't mean it's not all still demanding, but I hope that there's a little bit of a bigger box in which people can express their needs and say, well, if I can spend more time over in this corner and then do that, it'll work better for me and my family.
I think it's opened up a lot of conversations about work in general, which is a positive. Just as you were saying, do we have to go in every single day? Is it possible that some of these things can be virtual? And I want to give credit to my colleagues here at FSU when I shared that we were expecting. So we had my husband and I had a baby in May, and we moved in July and started new jobs in August. But I was open with them and said, I need to have some time here. Like I don't have leave in the same way. If I had been on faculty before. And so Tuesday and Thursday afternoons this semester, I got to be home with my son. And it was invaluable in so many ways. I can't talk about it because I will cry. But I do think just as you said, talking about work, talking about not just the concern of women coming to work, but parents, caregivers in general. I hope, like you're saying, that just by speaking these things aloud and feeling like you have a safe place to do so can help to change the narrative.
I would hope that everyone, in academia and everything has a different awareness now than they would have certainly 20 years ago.
And I think
for sure,
even speaking beyond academia, I taught in the secondary public school realm before going back to school for my doctorate. And I, like you were saying, if I could go back and do one thing differently, reflecting on that time, I had decided that it would be too much to have a family and stay in that position. That was a truth that I told myself. And I really did make it very difficult if I had stayed and kept going at the same pace to make that a reality. McKenna now can look back and say, I know I could have made some different choices, and that would have been a possibility if it was something I chose to prioritize. And I could have done the best by my students and by my family, and it would have meant some changes. But I think for anyone listening, this conversation is, important and bigger than just one sphere. And I hope that we can all have the insight that you did to just say, let's just take a pause now and reflect and ask ourselves some questions, and that there can be room.
Yeah. And sometimes we think, we do some thinking and we come to a conclusion. And we think, okay, that's it. I did, a little pros and cons list, and I've come to it. Maybe put it away and come back to it. Invite a different person to have a conversation with you. Sometimes there's more than one solution, and the right one might take a little while to.
I also think along. Just last thought here on this topic, but. These are all interrelated. Everything that we've talked about within this conversation relates back to each other, specifically the things that you were saying about knowing your worth and deciding when to say yes and when to say no. And we need to continue to remind each other to say no, that there is somebody else who would love that opportunity And it doesn't mean that they won't
Yeah.
come back to you. But the more that we perpetuate this idea that women are like superheroes in our field and can do everything and everything's fine all the time, they're always great on the podium, they come home, they answer 300 emails at 4 a.m, like it's not helping anyone. And it's only going to make it worse for the next generation of people. So I think we just need to remind each other, like, we cannot do everything. And so we have to say, I can't do this right now. And that is okay. It's human.
Right.
It's human. We make choices.
I think we're programmed to say, I said I would do this, so I have to just do it. And we don't even talk to anybody about the fact that we actually really regret saying I could do this, or we think we could hand it over to this person or hand it back entirely. We just don't think we have permission to do that. And sometimes then we soldier on and do a terrible job of something because we actually couldn't do it. And it's hard to give ourselves permission to say, that was a mistake, I need help. Or that was a mistake, I need to not do this year. I could do it next year or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor.
The Conductor Choral Series, powered by Music Spoke, is an intentional platform that highlights the voices of women and their allies in the choral music world. This series is designed to elevate and celebrate the contributions of women throughout history, as well as those currently shaping the music scene. Its name, Conductor, intertwines the role of a conductor with the concept of empowerment and the recognition of women in music, a field where their contributions have often been overlooked or underrepresented.
The series serves as a celebration of diverse women's voices, composers, conductors, singers, and advocates, by providing access to choral works that reflect their unique perspectives, creativity, and experiences. Through this collection, Music Spoke gives both emerging and established composers the opportunity to share their voices with the choral community, providing a sense of inclusivity, visibility, and accessibility to repertoire. Check out the Conduct Her Choral Series today for your next concert.
And we're back.
Yeah.
So much there. McKenna, do you want to ask our next question?
Sure. So this is a question we ask all of our guests, and everybody has had such varied answers. But you've been in the field since the 1980s, and I know that so much has changed, but we still are getting a lot of emails and concerns and things that are the demographic is saying that we're still facing some discrimination. We're still facing some microaggressions. And so we're wondering if there might have been a time where you faced discrimination in the field, and what suggestions you might have for others to overcome this type of adversity or work through some of these challenges.
Yeah, that's a hard one right off the top of my head, so I may not come up with a great story, but I am left-handed and I conduct left-handed. And so that has been sort of baggage on me. Not anymore, I would say, but early on thinking, well, I'm supposed to do this right-handed. And I'm just a person whose right hand is like belongs to somebody else's body. It's like just, I'm not close to ambidextrous. So I had to make a decision whether to conduct left-handed and face criticism and whatever comments and stuff, or whether to just do it. And one thing that really helped was when I went to Sweden, day one of the classes, I said to Eric Erickson, what do you do here with people who are left-handed? And he said, oh, we let them conduct left-handed. Why wouldn't you use all your strength? And I thought, oh, thank goodness, like so clear. He didn't even hesitate, he was in his mid 60s at that point. And so I used that as my validation to keep going with what I did. But I'm sure now maybe this is less of a microaggression than a self-imposed microaggression, that there were people judging me for doing that all these years. And I don't even think about it anymore. I don't use a baton, and I don't do a lot of conducting of orchestras. And I think both of those relate back to this left-handed thing. Was I going to be judged? Now when I conduct it used to be when I conducted instrumentalists, I would say, now I'm left-handed, so whatever. And now it doesn't even occur to me to say anything to them anymore. Nobody, I don't think, notices. My beat is clear. They are getting the information they need, and they're good musicians and whatever. But I've been sort of carrying that my whole career. And I'm sure it's one reason that I avoided conducting orchestras in anything, a few times in my life, but not many. Yeah.
There is still time to conduct an orchestra left-handed, Morna.
Yes,
There is no need to stop now. So just know. But
Yeah.
that's so interesting that you say that, because we have a conductor in the cohort that I'm working with right now that is left-handed, and it's made me sort of think. I wonder how many left-handed conductors out there at some point in their career have been told that's not correct, or that's not.
Oh, for sure.
And an awareness of that. And
yeah.
watching somebody grow, because my son is at the point where we're not sure what hand he will be. Like, he keeps flip-flopping. And so that whole journey has been a little bit more present in my world than maybe before. But that's really fascinating. And I hope that we all can take from that and just think about the people we're working with and supporting their strengths, as Eric Erickson so elegantly said. It was really beautiful.
Yeah. So he didn't even have to hesitate. He just knew the answer in his mind. So yeah, it was super helpful.
Well, Morna, it has been just a delight to have you here.
Oh, so nice to meet you.
We have our fast 5 closing questions. Know that they might take you a moment longer, but just say the first thing that comes to the top of your head. There's no wrong answers.
Okay.
And so we've got 5 fast questions for you. The first of which is, what is your current favorite choral octavo or composer?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard thing to say. I really like the work of Marie-Claire Sandon. She's a Canadian composer. But as soon as I'm trying to answer this, my mind is just so full of composers and music. Another one is Stephen Smith, my pianist, who's written so much fantastic music.
Marie-Claire is, I just programmed Kyra for the spring. And
I haven't done it.
It's really cool. It's in Finnish.
Oh, good.
It has a lot of Finnish text, so I know what I'll be doing over break, but it's amazing. What is one misconception about you?
I don't think I have an answer for that. That I'm always nice, maybe, although I kind of always am nice.
All right. Third question. What is one word to describe you as a conductor?
Fluid.
That was a great answer.
We've never had that one. I was writing it down frantically.
Good.
That's beautiful. I love that. What is one choral blooper from your career that you might share?
I'm sure there have been hundreds of them, and I can't think of one. Isn't that crazy? I must have suppressed them. They're definitely out there.
I love that. They're all suppressed.
yeah. They're ancient history now. Yeah.
We could all take comfort knowing that many happened, and you still made it here.
Oh yes. Yeah.
All right. And then the very last question for you is just, what is one of your favorite choral memories?
I'll just use one that happened a week ago. There are just so many. Elektra was singing The Light of Hope Returning, which is Sean Kirshner's newish 2019 whole Christmas winter solstice arc kind of. It's a whole concert, and there's visuals and everything. And it was a pandemic project of ours, and we've done it twice now in concert. And I really wanted to do it in my last season. And we knew the music so well, and we had this dream instrumental ensemble, and Sean was there, and it was just such a great experience. And the singers just kind of it was like this little love story between the singers and the audience, and everybody felt really grounded and rooted in just giving the music to each other and to the audience. And it was so beautiful. And it's funny that I should say that's from last week, because I could come up with 50 others from different points in my life. But the whole The whole act of giving as a group of people, I have come to understand that more and more, that that's actually the essence of what we do. Through music, we do that thing. And probably any other examples from my life that I would grab that are those high point moments, they probably could be analyzed in that way as well. It was a moment of deep connection between listeners and performers, and the performers themselves. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, Morna, this has been just the most fabulous conversation. We've loved getting to know you and hear from you. And we're so excited for our listeners to just glean lots of wisdom from this hour we've had together. So in our last second, just our listeners, please check out the Elektra website, Elektra. And if you don't already follow us on social media, we are Conductor Pod at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, conductor.com. Thank you for listening.
And thanks for doing such a great job with this podcast, you two. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. This has been Conductor. This episode was engineered and mixed by Mary Hannah Klontz, with intro and outro music by Chloe Garut and ad music by Kate Krellin. Discover more resources at conductor.com.